Hello there, I'm Born Medicated, and welcome to this little corner of YouTube. I've been doing some videos on Doom Patrol recently, but I'd like to get back to where I started on Alan Moore's Lovecraftian tale, Neonomicon, then eventually Providence. I have schizoaffective disorder, and I do these videos to help me feel a little part of a community. And I've said it here before, and I will here again, I'm in way over my head here. Not only is Alan Moore a genius with detail, but so is Lovecraft. Add that I have to deal with what YouTube will actually let me show of this almost porn of a comic. I have no idea how I'm getting through this, but here we are. We ended our last comic with our FBI agents getting tricked by the cult they were there to infiltrate, with the African-American male FBI character getting killed and the sex-addicted FBI female agent getting sexually assaulted by the group, then introduced to the Deep One. Deep Ones are first mentioned in Dagon. They're fish-like men worshipped by natives on some island in the shadow over Innsmouth. And there was an esoteric order of Dagon, where people again worship these Deep Ones. And here we are in recent nowadays times where people are worshiping this thing again, and it's the plot of this story. You got me? So the cover shows the Deep One headed towards the female FBI agent, Meryl Barrows. We start the comic with FBI boss Carl Perlman and a minor FBI'er named Barstow interrogating the singer of the Arthur Cats, Randolph Carter. They're interrogating him about Bears and Lamper being missing for 3 days, but the FBI is finally wising up that this is all related to H.P. Lovecraft. Carl even saying it's kind of fucked up that they're getting an actual statement of Randolph Carter, which is a Lovecraft tale. They get the statement, and it's all in Lovecraftian garble called Aklo. It's called that because Aklo is the drug you take to make you talk that way. Now, the statement is being read. We follow the comic, and Moore did his job as a writer here because they're all words from the Cthulhian mythos. Now, excuse me on how I pronounce all this because I'm part hillbilly. So here we go. There's Yogolnak, which is an entity created by Ramsey Campbell in his short, Cold Print. The words Ron Tagoth is Lovecraft from Horror in the Museum. There's also Charnar Fagan. Jesus Christ, you don't know these words, so you say them out loud. But that's from Lovecraft and his boy Frank Belknap from Horror in the Hills. There's Tasathgua, and that's from Lovecraft and his other boy, Clark Ashton Smith. So as expected, Alan Moore did his homework, even to the last word, Tizan, which is from the Book of Tizan, which is an ancient text that was a basis of Helena Blavatsky's secret doctrine, the foundation of theosophy. Lovecraft includes the Tizan in Haunter of the Dark, and it's also the name of an alien race in Edgar Allan Poe's The Narrative of Arthur Gordon Pym of Nantucket. So man, this gets deep. So the comic then shows the occult shop Whispers in the Darkness, with a bunch of FBIs stomping their hooves around, which is actually the upstairs. And in my last video, I predicted the FBI would find the tunnel downstairs pretty easy, so I was wrong. We follow the comic down the tunnel, and we see Jack Boggs carved into the wood, with 1781, apparently when all this started here. I discussed Jack Boggs in my last video. And then the worst happens. We see Meryl with the Deep One on top of her. Now, I'm going to take a 5 here and say that this isn't for me. I started out wanting to do a video on Providence because it's a really awesome story, and I couldn't find a video in English really breaking it down. Apparently, the book is pretty famous around the world because there's a bunch of videos in other languages, but here in the States, people usually only speak American, so I wanted to do one in English. Thing is, Providence is like part 3, and the illness in me isn't going to let me start anything on a part 3, so here we are. And I'll try to do the best I can with this just awful subject. It closes in on Meryl's face with her eyes all spacey, and then we see what's in her head, which is her sitting naked in what appears to be like a ruined, ancient, sunken city surrounded by water. Relay is a sunken city of stone block where Cthulhu dwells, so that's probably where she is. Meryl sees some guy walking on water towards her, and you know when you're like in a dream and the weird is going on, but for some reason you just kind of accept it? Well, I think that's what's going on here because she acts so cool, and even offered to do to help up. Well, he starts talking with the lisp he has, and he introduces himself as Carcosa, who we met in our courtyard videos. And he says he's an associate of Mr. Sachs. Now, I don't care for how Meryl is acting here. She says she thinks she knows Sachs from the Sachs Addiction Hospital, and we know how Alan likes to mess around with words because he's a witch, and degrades herself, calling herself a dirty whore. She does have problems with hating herself, so that's probably where this is all coming from. Then the writer does something pretty genius. Carcosa tells Meryl, "You're a nun, see? An Asian Mary." Translated, "You're a nun, see? An Asian Mary." Even Meryl responds, "I'm not Asian, and no one's called me Meryl since school." But what he's really saying is, "Your Annunciation Mary." The Annunciation in Christianity is when the angel Gabriel came to Mary and told her that she was going to carry the Son of God, Jesus Christ. In this case, Carcosa, who's Nyarlathotep, is posing as Gabriel, where Meryl or Mary is supposed to be the Virgin Mary, and Meryl will bear the godlike child of the Deep One. It gets even deeper because in the Dunwich Horror, which is literally parallel to the conception and death of Jesus, with Yog-Sothoth standing in for the Holy Spirit, and Dunwich in turn influenced Arthur Macon's The Great God Pan, that directly influences the Annunciation. So man, here we go. Then Carcosa says that this is in fact Relay, and Meryl recognizes that it is in fact from Lovecraft. Carcosa then says that Lovecraft got some names wrong and that they have nothing to do with the Dagon cult. But we know Carcosa deals with cults, so he may be lying. He says he has a lot of respect for her and that she's his sister, and her nakedness is the glory to the secret earth. This is a reference to Aleister Crowley and his sex magic. And Carcosa reveals to her that he's an avatar of Nyarlathotep, as I explained on how Nyarlathotep all ties into this in my last video. Now, an avatar aren't weird blue things or how you want to look in The Sims, but from Hindu mythology, it's actually a deity that uses an earthly form. And Meryl puts together that Carcosa is connected to the murders of Courtyard. And then he kisses her, which is a reference to the holy kiss in the Bible, which is a vow or commitment. Now, during this, it starts giving us a little bio on HP and his weird upbringing and sex life. Like when he was little and his mental mom would dress him up like a little girl all the time. And then he was raised by 2 crazy aunties. He then had a marriage that only lasted 3 years, and in those 3 years, they weren't together very much. Rumors were he left his clothes on during sex, even his gloves, and the strongest gesture of affection he could show was pressing his fingertips to hers and grunting softly. Well, we see this as Carl saying all this, but I don't think it's all fact. See, back then they didn't text or post to Facebook, but they did keep journals and write letters back and forth to each other. His wife Sonia in these letters never said he had sex with his clothes on, but she did write down Lovecraft would wrap his pinky around hers and go, but that's it. All right, then this other FBI guy then says something to kind of take note. He says, although grossly, that all of Lovecraft's stories are about sex. The monsters, the white slime everywhere, and all the stuff stinks like dead fish. He kind of makes a little point that some of the aliens do look like giant sex toys. It may all go down to how H.P. actually saw women. See, Lovecraft was pretty much in a room for 34 years before he lost his virginity, so God knows what was going on upstairs with him. The FBI figures out the gibberish language is Aklo, and in Dunwich Horror, Aklo letters are used, but Aklo itself was first mentioned in Arthur Machen's story, The White People, which sounds like a Jordan Peele horror movie. Then the feds talk about how famous Lovecraft is, and that it's probably some HP fanboys taking this stuff way too seriously by actually abducting and murdering people. And I guess they got a damn good chemist working for them because they invented Aklo, a drug that makes you speak a language you've never heard and then go hack people up all the same way. I have a theory here because DMT is said to make people experience all the same thing, but Hear More is taking that to a murder level. Then we see a very graphic shot of the Deep One and Meryl crouched in a corner. The Deep One is totally uncircumcised, by the way. Then it shows Meryl eating and trying to be nice to the thing, offering it something to eat, but it's only interested in her. Through her trying to fend off, then coming to a compromise, she then has to pee. Well, he totally tastes it. And gets real happy. So happy, in fact, he breaks down the gate, grabs Meryl, takes her under, and then through the gate and into the open water. And holy fuck, that's the end of book 3. Now listen, I'm no art critic. I have no degree in literature. I'm a dude with schizophrenia and a tablet. But I think Alan Moore in his old age has been rich and famous too long, and he lives in a social bubble, one that thinks that people actually want nudity like this. That, or he's become a creepy old man. Or maybe he's been a sex creep this whole time, and working for this independent comic has let him do what he wants and let his true colors shine. Lots of ors there, lots of questions we might not want the answers to. But I can say he maybe learned something from this because Providence is told a lot better. In the next story, Providence, this kind of stuff is really toned down and focuses more on the story of how this whole plot got started with HP and a journalist from the 1920s. How it feels to be a struggling gay Jewish writer at the start of Prohibition and then thrown into a crazy psychedelic world of ancient aliens. Not this stuff. I'm not saying that this kind of work doesn't have an audience, but the sales of Providence were better than Neonomicon, so that does say something. Also, don't get me wrong, I love Alan Moore and his work. I just think he was going through some stuff when he was writing this. Well, the next part will be out soon. I couldn't have done this video without Joe Linton's page on WordPress. And I'm assuming that Linton Joe from Reddit is him that I gave a shout out to in a previous video for helping me. So again, thank you. Please keep an eye on my channel for more stuff, and please leave a like or a dislike and tell me what you think of the story. I'd love to hear from you. I'm Born Medicated. Thanks for watching, and I'll totally see you next time.